Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's live instructor chat. We'll go ahead and wait here a couple seconds to let some people jump on that we're planning on attending this live. And tonight we are going to be talking about the Advanced Therapeutic Riding Certification through PATH International. So before we get going, just quick disclaimer that this is not endorsed or paid for by the PATH office. This is just me sharing my experience with this level of certification, the process that I went through to prepare and test, and then also just some tips from myself and some other instructors. So what I'm sharing here may or may not reflect the PATH office, so make sure that everything always goes through them. They have final say. This is just me on my own time. So for those of you that are joining in live or even on a replay, if you can tell me where you're from and why you wanted to watch this advanced certification talk, that would be great, because I'd be super interested to hear if this talk is helping you make that final decision on whether or not you're going to go for advanced certification. Do you have maybe a fellow coworker that's getting ready to go for the advanced and you want to either encourage or discourage them with the process? Are you mentoring someone? So just kind of let me know where you're coming from. That's just interesting for me to hear. And it also helps me kind of, hit a couple extra points if there's time as well, depending on who's listening live. So tonight, like I mentioned, we are going to be talking about the Advanced Therapeutic Riding Certification through PATH International. We're going to talk about, is it worth it? How do you prepare for it? And what the certification process is like. So if you haven't already figured it out, the answer is yes, it is worth it. And there are several different reasons that I kind of want to go over. So one, getting your advanced certification makes you more marketable and hireable. And I do want to stress that it's not just getting your advanced certification, but it is knowing all of the criteria that is listed in this advanced packet makes you more marketable. So it's not just passing that certification, because you can prepare and pass a test, but it's actually obtaining that information and being able to consistently deliver that in your lessons. So being an advanced instructor and challenging yourself to rise to all of this information makes you more marketable, makes you easier, much more, I'm sorry, I'm getting over head cold and I'm sounding all jumbled up. Makes you more marketable and more hireable. So if I am looking at someone who is a registered level instructor versus an advanced instructor, and I'm looking to hire them on, I would probably choose an advanced person, as long as they are able to actually demonstrate all this stuff, or if they just kind of have that certification but aren't really teaching like an advanced instructor. There is a difference. Another reason why I encourage people to go for the advanced certification is because it challenges you to increase not only your theoretical, so your book knowledge, but also your practical knowledge. Again, that implementing all of that stuff in your daily classes. And it is a challenge. It makes you learn. It's hard. It takes work to get this advanced certification, but that's all part of the process. Getting the advanced certification and going through all of these steps is also a great way to kind of assess where you are skill-wise, and it's a great external judge of where you're at, and not just you looking at yourself, because sometimes we have a skewed version of what we're doing and what is reality. So this is just kind of a good litmus test to see where we're at. And also the advanced certification process, or really any certification where you're under the observation of other people, it does force you to kind of get out of your comfort zone, and it also opens up some great opportunities for you to interact with other people in our field of work. And just to let you guys know, I will answer questions in between kind of my breaks here. I'm a little foggy brained already, and then I get distracted if I answer questions. So type in questions while I'm talking, and then when I hit a pause in my little outline here, I will definitely answer questions. So ask questions, those are great. All right, so overall, yes, advanced certification is worth it. The next question I usually get is, oh my gosh, is it impossible? No, I'm sitting here, I have an advanced certification. I actually got my advanced certification the first time through, but I worked my tush off to get it. I took several months of preparing, thousands of hours of teaching in the years leading up to it. So no, it's not impossible to get if you prepare for it. And again, if you learn the stuff that's in the packet. It is more challenging than the registered level because there are more components that you're being tested on, and we'll talk more about that later, but it's very achievable. And I think it is a very fair test. And I think what you're held to and what you're asked to demonstrate and know is very fair for the advanced level. And then also, I've heard, people say, oh, well, I've heard that people take the test and they fail at least once, or they've tried several times, and I have a friend who just gave up because it's just impossible. Well, there is a lower, pass rate or meets criteria rate than the registered level, and the 2000 statistics from PATH International says that out of the 25 people that year who tested for certification, 9 met criteria and 16 did not meet criteria. So that's about, a third. I think it's like 36% that did meet, and then the rest did not meet. I don't have the statistics for the later years, but that is 2016. So it does have a lower success rate than the registered level certification, but I think that's because people are going in unprepared. Again, I think it's a very fair test, and I think that it's not, they're not asking too much of people going into it. And then another question I get a lot is, what's the difference between registered and advanced? So one, there's more components in the advanced certification, and we'll talk about those details at the end and what a certification actually looks like. And then the other thing is that the criteria is different. And I just want to take a couple seconds here and go over some samples of the differences between the registered level and the advanced. So I have the registered level criteria printed off as well as the advanced criteria. I do a lot of instructor mentoring, so that's why I have it printed off and I look over this a lot. I would highly suggest that you do the same. It's a great way to just keep refreshed and have this handy. So a lot of the criteria is the same, so it's broken down into like equine management, and then there's sub-points underneath. And a lot of the criteria points are similar, as you're going to see, between the registered level and the advanced level. But at registered level, that's kind of like your baseline, the bare minimum of what you need to know when you're going for this entry-level certification. Then your advanced level is going to be more involved and more in depth and digging deeper into that same point. So for example, when we're looking at the equine management section and we're looking at the registered level 2.2, it says know the parts of the horse for registered level. So again, very basic, know the parts of the horse, that's it. At the advanced level, it says know, identify, and relate conformation and the parts of the horse to form and function. So at the advanced level, you're now taking your registered level knowledge of the parts of the horse, and now you're digging deeper and you're knowing and being able to identify, relate, find the reasons of, what this part does, how it functions, how it ties into conformation, how it relates to movement, all of that. Another example, when we are looking at, sorry, I should have had these highlighted before. We're looking again at the equine management. So 10.3 here at the registered level says recognize the need for conditioning and a maintenance program for therapeutic riding horses, including lunging, schooling, record keeping. So recognize the need for is at the registered level. Then at the advanced level, we go deeper, and it tells us that we need to design, implement, and recognize the individual needs for conditioning, schooling, and maintenance program for horses, including schooling and conditioning, suppling, lunging, record keeping, training, progression, vices. So again, we're going deeper now at the advanced level. Taking a look now at the horsemanship. So registered level 6.1, we have movements that you need to know at the registered level. You need to know and demonstrate no turn on the forehand. So that's the movement that you need to know at the registered level. And then we go deeper now at the advanced, and there's more movements that you need to be familiar with. So it says know and demonstrate. Turn on the forehand, leg yield with the walk, trot, or jog, side pass, shoulder in, haunches in, bending, pivots, or turn on the haunches. And this ties into certification later as well that we'll talk about. So again, we have entry level, just a simple movement, and now more expanded movements at the advanced level. And we're going to take a look at 2 more here. So at the registered level, your instruction 5.2. We have instruct the appropriate use of the following artificial aids crop. So at the registered level, really all they're expecting you to know is how to instruct a student who uses a crop on a horse. At the advanced level, they're then expecting you to instruct the appropriate use of the following artificial aids, such as crop, martingale, spurs, other adaptations, and their functions. So they're expecting you to have a more thorough, well-rounded understanding of artificial aids at the advanced level. Last one we're going to look at is going to be disabilities. So if we look at the registered level disabilities, 2.2, it says know the definition, causes, characteristics, and teaching management for riders' disabilities that the instructor teaches. So they know that, kind of coming in entry-level, registered level, that you're probably not going to have had a ton of time in the arena, and you're going to be exposed to the disabilities that are at the center that you're training with. So you are to know the disabilities that you teach. So you need to be familiar with those. But when we get to the advanced level, now looking at disabilities, again, 2.2, same point, there's a whole list of 31 different disabilities here. So amputation, apraxia, arthritis, asthma, cerebral vascular accident. So all of these you need to know definitions, causes, characteristics, and teaching techniques for those types of disabilities. So they're expecting you to seek out this knowledge and information, and even if you haven't gained hands-on experience with them, you need to at least have an understanding of it and know where to resource that information, and have a pretty well-rounded understanding of the disabilities. So the advanced level really does build on the registered level. And then the last point I kind of get with the last question I get about the advanced is it expensive? So, when you look at everything else, in my mind, it really is not that expensive. It's an investment into your education. It's an investment into your career. And if you go into your certification process prepared, and you're confident, you have hit all the points, and you're likely to succeed, you're not going to waste money retesting when you went in unprepared just because you thought you were going to pass. Instead of knowing you're going to pass because you're familiar with the criteria, not just familiar with the testing process. And then also, if you have a plan on how you're going to use this and how it's going to further your career, it is well worth the money. I will tell you right now that I would not be where I'm at now if I did not have my advanced certification. So, and there's other places that I want to go in my career that I'm working towards master level, and I want to go that direction, and I have a plan. But if you kind of just go into it for the certificate and you don't have a plan, you don't have drive behind it, it's probably going to seem like an expensive decision, maybe not an investment. And then also, when we're going to look into college degrees or like a massage therapist certification, anything else like that, people are willing to pay money for those types of certifications or those types of degrees that further your education, further your knowledge, further your career. But then something warped happens here in our equine industry where all of a sudden we expect things to be free. So you are going to have to invest into yourself and into your career. That is just the reality of where we're at. And usually, however much you invest is what you get out of it. And I will be very honest that you are going to have to invest something into this advanced process or into the registered level process. A lot of it is going to be investment of your time. You're probably not going to get paid to go do, attend workshops that further your education and mentor under people. You're probably going to be paying them. I was very fortunate to be able to mentor and get guidance under some very, very, excellent teachers without having to pay them. But I have paid for lessons, I have paid for mentoring, I have paid for clinics and workshops out of my own pocket. And then also I worked my tail off at the center that I was working for in order for them to invest into me and help me further my education as well. So there is going to be investment on your part, but what's your drive behind it? Do you want to further your career? Do you want to become a better instructor, or is this just kind of a plaque you want to hang on the wall? So I think that kind of answers the question on, is it expensive and what is it worth to you? All right, so I'm going to take a break here and answer a question. So Kia asks, is it worth getting before or after the accreditation change? So I would encourage you to start working on the process now. Right now, the advanced and the master level and the driving and vaulting and all of that is not going to be affected by the credentialing process at this point. PATH does say that eventually the other processes will change, but I would encourage you to just keep on working towards advanced or even register now, keep working towards the registered level certification in the current way until you're forced to go the new way. So yeah, I would say it's definitely worth getting it as soon as you're ready. Don't try to jump in though before you're not prepared, and then you end up having to pay extra money to retest. And then also, what's a good way to get your center to value the advanced certification and help you financially through the process? Centers don't seem to see the importance of it. So you might have to do some research and actually do a presentation on, why this is important. So in order to be faculty for PATH International, you have to be at least an advanced instructor. So that was a big push and a big promotion to the center I was working for. Is like, look, once I get advanced level, one, I'll be the only person in the state at the time. So that looks really good for them when they're applying for grants. Two, that gives our center more push when we go out and present in the community. And it looks better if you have this higher level certification. And then also, that potential of maybe not having to hire faculty, and if you guys are a center that hosts workshops and certifications, so there might be an alternate revenue stream if you have this higher level certification and you guys can host some events and some trainings. And then also, I would also say that if you're truly not just going for the certification, but also like actually investing into this education, that setter should realize that they're not just investing in that little piece of paper that says advanced instructor, but they're investing into you becoming a better instructor to better serve your clients, or your students. Sorry, client's the wrong word for adaptive riding. To better serve your students. Thankfully, the center I worked for was very supportive, and they knew that and they encouraged that. So I thankfully didn't really have to fight for that at all. But yeah, I would put together a list of it and really, if the center has the right mindset of having high quality, safe services, being recognized in the community for being a leading center, and then, maybe also hosting other events, that's a drive or a push as well. So good questions, Kia. Thank you. All right. So quickly here, just a little history about kind of where I came from and how I got my advanced certification. So in 2009, I started volunteering and I did a college internship at a local premier accredited center. I had grown up with horses my entire life, but I had actually sworn them off for a couple of years before then for various reasons. But I had started there because I thought I wanted to go in the mental health realm, or like counseling or social work or something like that. So I thought, well, I'll get used to special needs kids. Fun project. I know horses, good place to do an internship. When I was volunteering, they did have a need for an additional certified instructor. I had the horse background. They asked if I wanted to do that, and so I decided to get certified. During that time, leading up to even my registered level certification, I spent a lot of unpaid time at the barn, volunteering in classes, exercising horses, shadowing instructors, completing my internship. So again, I put in a lot of investment time of my time to learning and growing and getting to know the industry and getting to know how the program ran, and getting to learn other instructors and getting to see other students that may not have been on my day that I was training under. And then I went for my certification. I passed it on the first try. I kept my notes. I have every single certification training I've gone through, I have it in my file. So I kept those notes from the registered level certification, and I not right away, because I'll touch on this later, but I eventually came back to those and actually started working off the feedback from my registered level certification to help make me a better instructor. After registered certification, I taught a lot. I think I logged probably close to 2,500 hours before I went for my advanced certification. I didn't have kids yet. We had a pretty flexible schedule. And I did a lot of teaching instead of just admin stuff, which I kind of switched to later in my career at that center. So I taught a lot and I covered for a lot of instructors. So getting put in those uncomfortable situations of not knowing the student, kind of teaching off of a lesson plan and going by what I saw. The center I work for hosted a lot of PATH workshops and certifications, at least 2 a year. So I did have the privilege of watching advanced and master level instructors teach. And again, I would volunteer and come in on my own time to sit through workshops and listen to them teach, and over and over. I probably sat through that darn registered level workshop probably, 15 or so times, bits and pieces here and there, because I wanted to learn and I wanted to see how those high level instructors taught. And then in 2011, I attended an advanced prep workshop and a mock test, and it was specifically geared towards the advanced certification. It was not just me sitting in on a registered level workshop. That will not teach you what you need to know for advanced prep or for the advanced level. And then during that advanced prep workshop, we did get some really awesome written feedback. So I kept those notes and I worked really, really hard on the lower rated sections. And then I also continued to improve in my stronger areas. So I didn't just forget about the strengths. I continued to work on those, but really focused on the weaker areas. And I made note cards for all of this criteria, and I studied all of the stuff in the advanced criteria booklet, which was not laid out as pretty as it is now. PATH's done a really nice job redoing the formatting on that, so it looks a lot prettier now. Then I also do want to say that in between 2009 and 2012, I did a lot of maturing and growth. I started in this industry really, really young, and during that time, I got a lot better at listening, a lot better at absorbing information, and a lot better at asking questions. I learned that it was okay I learned that it was okay to not know everything, and that recognizing what you don't know is a strength and not a weakness. And thankfully, I had some very wonderful people and wonderful instructors model that. And they had some, tough love conversations with me through those years. And they're part of the reason of why I was able to get out of that rut and that young mindset of, having to prove myself and always be the first to answer that question. And, instead of just shutting my mouth and listening and proving through my actions, I knew what I was doing. And I had felt that drive to prove I was worth that registered level certification and prove I was worth my position at the center I was at, and then overall I kind of overcompensated and it came off the wrong way. So I eventually, after I learned that, went back, and that's when I looked at my registered level notes, really learned from those, and then also again reevaluated that advanced prep. And then in 2012, I tested for the advanced certification. I met all the criteria in the first attempt, and I still have that feedback. And I regularly go back and I read the notes to make sure I'm not falling into that rut again. And I do want to say that I'm very thankful that I was at a center for almost 10 years that was very supportive of me, like I mentioned before. And they really did, as long as I was willing to invest my time and work my tail off for it, they would invest into me growing as an instructor and my trainings and helping me attend workshops and stuff. But I worked for it. It wasn't handed to me. And then also, now that I have my advanced level certification, that's not the end of it. I still go over the criteria. I continue to learn. We learn new stuff every day if we're willing to learn. So, I'll check here for questions really quick, but that's kind of like the history of me and how I kind of got to this level right now. So how old was I? So I usually don't tell people my age until you get to know me. I was 19 when I got my registered level, and then I was just shy of 22. So when I got my advanced. So I'm pretty young. I still am young for where I'm at, but yeah, that's just who I am, and I act a lot more mature than my age. But I was really young at the time, but I had a lifetime of horse experience too to kind of grow off of as well. So had I not had that, I don't think I maybe would have been ready at that time. But I love working with younger instructors because they feel that, that burden and that uncomfortableness being in an industry that can sometimes be with older people. Yeah, so don't be afraid to go for it. You do have to be 21 though to get your advanced certification, 18 for registered. Okay, so moving on from my little bunny trail side story there. All right, so I talked to some other wonderful advanced instructors. So thank you to Jacqueline Tiley, Annie Mabry, and Amy Tripson for giving some tips. So these are tips that are compiled from me, Jacqueline, Annie, and Amy to help you guys prepare for the advanced certification. And also, oh, by the way, little prompt for the Intuitive Instructor Club. Some of the other wonderful instructors that have partnered up with me in doing the Intuitive Instructor are going to be doing more series on the advanced certification and advanced preparation. So there's going to be some really good stuff coming up in that. So join the Intuitive Instructor Club. All right, so tips now. Be honest with where you are at in your skill level and what you need to work on. So be prepared to do self-evaluation. And be prepared to be uncomfortable. Another instructor said, I want to get to the point where I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's usually where growth happens. Review the criteria and make a plan. So go through this packet, highlight the stuff that you're familiar with. Keep reviewing it though, don't just forget about it. And then also go through and highlight what you need to know. Make flashcards, quiz yourself on it, set deadlines of I'm going to get through these next 10 points by 2 months from now, or whatever you want to do. Set deadlines for yourself or else it's not going to get done. Don't test if you don't feel you're ready. And if you watch my registered level presentation on preparing and everything, I said the same thing. If you're not ready, don't test. One, you're putting in a lot of money, or your center's paying a lot of money for you to go do this. And two, if you're not ready, you're going to go in there floundering. It's going to be a negative experience for you. It's going to be a negative experience for the horses and the students of the center you're testing at. So make sure you go in prepared. And of course, you're going to feel stronger in some areas, but you need to at least be confident in your weaker areas and then know that you're going to excel in those strong areas. When you go sit through a prep or a practice test, again, I would highly, highly encourage that it is geared towards the advanced certification, not registered level workshop, even though that would technically meet criteria. When you go sit through that prep or practice, have your ears open, be willing to learn, and look for ways that you can be a better instructor. Don't just go attend it to see if, oh, can I pass it? Go in with a student mindset and a learning mindset. Because if you're going in just to see if you're going to pass, that's kind of the wrong motivation there. And yeah, you can train to pass a test. But again, like I mentioned earlier, preparing yourself to pass a certification and preparing yourself to actually be an advanced instructor and know all this stuff is completely different. Find a quality mentor. And it's recommended that you have an advanced or master level instructor because they've gone through this process. And you need to trust what they say and what they're asking you to do. And they're probably going to do stuff that is asking you to go outside of your comfort box. And that is probably a mark of a good instructor or a good mentor, is they're going to push you to do stuff that's uncomfortable. So they're probably going to encourage you to take riding lessons in a seat that is not your primary discipline. So I went and I took some Western riding lessons because hunt seat and dressage are my primary. They might ask you to try new teaching techniques and lesson management styles or different mounting and dismounting techniques. Have an open mind and try it. And oh, by the way, your mentor is not there to drag you through this process. You need to be the one that is motivated, because I cannot tell you how exhausting it is as a mentor to drag someone through this process. It takes a lot of our time, a lot of our effort. A lot of times we do it for well worth below the market value of our services. And You know, someone, if we have to drag them to go do something or drag them to turn in what we're asking for, it makes us question if you really even want that certification. So be motivated. Prove to your mentor that you want this certification. And also realize that it takes a lot of self-discipline, a lot of self-motivation to learn what you need to know. My downtime is reading books, is watching videos. Like even still now, I don't really have downtime where I just do nothing or, you know, read science fiction novels or whatever. I rarely do that. A lot of my rec time is furthering my knowledge, but I enjoy it. So it's downtime to me. And a lot of those that are, you know, a lot of other instructors that are very far in our industry, I think you would probably find that common trend is that our downtime is spent learning and spent furthering it, but it's because it's something that we love and that it's interesting and we love learning and furthering ourselves. Study, study, study all the time. Study, push yourself to learn this stuff. Keep taking riding lessons. And you should be doing that even if you're not working towards a certification. Watch other quality instructors teach. So again, you want to be practicing and listening to correct things, and not saying that you can't learn stuff from not quality instructors, but when you're preparing for certification, you want good, high quality information coming into your brain. Videotape yourself teaching and riding. Watch them and go over them yourself and do self-evaluations. Go over them with an unbiased peer who knows what they're looking for. Go over them with a mentor. One, that's going to get you used to another set of eyes watching you. And then two, that is going to also help you hone that skill of self-evaluation and also get over that uncomfortable feeling of other people evaluating you. Don't give up is another tip. So if you go on to an advanced prep and receive feedback that your teaching, writing, or whatever component isn't ready, take that as a guidance and run with it. Go take lessons, go work on your able-bodied teaching or whatever the feedback is. Don't let it drag you down. Take it as a stepping block to move on and further yourself. If you attend the certification and don't pass it on the first try, again, take that information as a learning experience. Keep doing the good stuff and keep building up on the good stuff, but then work your tushy off to build yourself up in the areas that you struggled with and try again. And then maybe assess, you know, what was effective in the way I prepared, what was not effective, and fix those ways that were not effective to help you for your next certification. Teach as many different class sizes and different disabilities as possible, and put yourself in as many different situations as you can, because you don't know what you're going to get when you go for advanced certification. Put yourself into stressful situations. So volunteer to sub for another instructor. You know, volunteer to work with a new horse. Volunteer to work with a new student or maybe a more challenging student. Go teach at another center if they're okay with that. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that again is going to prepare you to be more flexible. Go to different centers and watch classes, watch how they run, watch how they teach. If you're allowed to, see if you can maybe come in and guest instruct for a little bit. Try different mounts and dismounts, because the way that you mount and dismount, it may not be the only way. Someone might have a better method. Learn different techniques too. So, you know, if you have a rider who does a crest mount to get off the horse, learn how you would progress them from being supported to a more independent crest mount. So learn different techniques that way. And also remember that the more adaptable and able you are to think on your feet, the better off you'll be. And that ties back to putting yourself in uncomfortable situations that you're not familiar with. That builds your adaptability, that makes you think on your feet, makes you problem solve. Some people that comes more natural to, and some of us we have to learn more on how to do that. Get good at self-reflection. You don't have to teach a perfect lesson at the registered level or the advanced level. You have to teach safe lesson for sure. And you have to hit certain points, but you don't have to teach a perfect lesson. You do need to be able to accurately self-evaluate though. And you know, say the parts that were good, and then what you would fix in the next lesson and how you would fix those points in lessons moving forward. Write out lesson plans beforehand. So all of the topics that we had to do for able-bodied riding, which we'll talk about later, I wrote lesson plans for, and I taught those over and over. And I also had a stockpile of lesson plans that I would teach for the adaptive riders that I was going to pull from for certification. And I had those written out, and I taught and taught and taught to various level classes. Amy mentioned this as well, so this is something she did as well. And then increase your knowledge and understanding of the build of a horse and how that ties into movement, and what is good conformation and why is it good conformation. So like going back to this criteria here, learn more about form of the horse, form of the human, and the function or the mechanics of things. Understand horse mechanics and human mechanics separately, and then also get a good understanding of how they interact and play off of each other. All right, so let's talk about certification now. So if you have actually gone through the process too, if you can comment with what helpful tips you've gotten, or if you're in the process, what helpful tips you've received, that would be also great to know. Love to hear those, so you can comment if you have any. So certification, before you actually go do the teaching and the writing, you have a proctored exam. So that is a timed closed book exam. It does need to be completed before your certification, and you need to get at least an 80% or higher score on that exam. The exam covers a lot of disability and basic medical terms. So again, going back to the criteria, you need to be familiar with the definition, the causes, characteristics of all of the disabilities listed in the packet. So, you know, is it a congenital diagnosis, or is it something that was caused by an accident? What are some of the symptoms? How do you define it? What are the differences between the disabilities that are very close together? And then knowing simple medical terms like abduct, adduct, all of those. Those are things that you need to be familiar with, you know, Latin, basic Latin terms. There's a lot of riding theory and terms as well. So inside rein, outside rein, direct rein, you know, correct posting diagonal, correct canter leads, the mechanics behind those. There's a lot of parts of the horse and terminology. There's conformation terms. And then there's also precautions and contraindications and how they would apply to the disabilities listed. And then also the PATH International standards as they apply to us as instructors. So assuming you pass that proctored exam, you would then move on to signing up for a certification. So part of the certification is your horsemanship portion, and that involves your riding and your lunging. And then out of the riding and the lunging, you also are evaluated on your equine evaluation and your stable management. So during the riding, when I went through it, I rode 2 horses, and that's fairly common. You usually start off on the horse that is your primary seat. So I started off in a dressage saddle since that was my primary seat. And we had to get on the horse, warm the horse up, move the horse through those movements. So, you know, simple change of lead, flying lead change, half circles, shoulder in, leg yield, side pass, all of that. So we had to try to incorporate as much stuff as we could into our warm up with the horse. And then we did some rail work. They made us drop stirrups. We had to do sitting trot, posting trot, cantering, riding with one hand, all of that stuff. And then we swapped horses, and then we had to do some additional things on that new horse as well. That's pretty standard. You know, sometimes you may only have to ride one horse, but for the most part you do ride 2. And that practice. So you have a list of all of these things that you need to demonstrate, you know, ring figures and movements and different rein uses and stuff. So have a plan going into your riding portion of the certification of how you can progress through all of those correctly and in a way that works with that horse. So don't just go in there and like, oh, I'm riding. Okay, what do I show you? Have a plan. Go in prepared. Lunging. You'll be asked to lunge a horse. Tip, wear a helmet since you're on the ground and you're working with a horse that you don't know. You will be provided a horse with some type of equipment on it. It could be a halter, it could be a lunging cavesson, it could be a bridle and a saddle. You don't know what that horse is going to have on it, but you have to safely and effectively lunge that horse in the equipment given to you. And you'll be given a different scenario. So you might be asked to lunge that horse for general exercise, or you might be asked to lunge the horse as if you were showing it to the vet for a lameness exam, or maybe you're warming the horse up for a class with tack and equipment on. So you need to be familiar with various equipment that you use for lunging, how you would secure tack if you're lunging with that on, and then also various ways that you would lunge the horse for different scenarios. Then after you do your lunging and your riding, during that time you're assessed on your equine management skills. So your safety around horses, your familiarity with equipment, different techniques and methods that you use, terms that you're using. You might have a few questions asked to you during that time. So that's kind of how that stable management is assessed. And then you have your equine evaluation. This part caught me off guard in my advanced portion. I forgot to take notes. Have a notepad with you, and when you're lunging the horse and when you're riding the horses that you're on, jot down notes of what their movement's like. So is it lateral, is it anterior posterior, is it rotational, are they a narrow build, did they take a lot of leg, or were they very responsive? So jot down notes on each horse that you work with, because you will then be asked to do an evaluation on that horse. What was their movement like? What type of students might they be good for? What type of programs might that horse work well in? So be prepared to put your interaction time with the horse to use as if you were, integrating it and selecting it and putting it in a program that you're working in. So that's the equine component, or the horsemanship component. Then you have the teaching component. So you will have to teach an able-bodied lesson, and it's 15 minutes to 2 riders. They were already mounted up and ready to go, but you should still check tack and all of that. And you had to draw a topic from a hat, look at your topic, and then you go out and you teach. I drew turn on the haunches for my advanced certification for my able-bodied. So you go out there and you teach your 2 your 2 able-bodied students for 15 minutes. And again, you need to teach that skill that you have drawn. You need to show some type of progression in your students. And also, again, incorporating all the good teaching techniques, what's, how's, why, specific, positive praise, constructive feedback, position corrections, all of that still needs to apply in your able-bodied lesson. And then you have your 2 30-minute lessons. So just like the registered level, you get your student profiles given to you the day before so that you can write up a lesson plan for you to teach the next day. The difference between registered level and advanced is registered level is 20 minutes with 2 riders. Advanced is a 30-minute lesson with 3 riders. And one of your 30-minute lessons will primarily be riders with physical disabilities. And then your other 30-minute lesson will be riders with primarily cognitive disabilities. And again, like many of us know, if you've been teaching, a lot of those are comorbid. So you might have someone with a cognitive disability also have physical disability tied in. But as a host site, we are supposed to try to give you a primarily physical disability lesson and a primarily cognitive disability lesson. Expect more involved mounts and dismounts, especially with that physical disability lesson. You expect to get a crest dismount, a crest mount, a wheelchair, or a lift mount, or something along those lines. Expect a more difficult mount and dismount, because again, this is advanced level. They're wanting to see what you know at this level. And then also at the registered level, when you get your 2 students, they're usually paired fairly closely with ability and skill wise. So, physical, cognitive ability are usually about the same, and then their horse skills are about the same. At the advanced level, those 3 students that you get could be pretty well spread out. So you might have one rider who rides independently, and then you might have 2 students that require some type of volunteer support. And that is suitable to the advanced level instructor. So practice teaching lessons with a wide range of students in them. You're going to also have to provide a written lesson plan for your 2 therapeutic riding lessons. You do not have to do a lesson plan for your able-bodied 15-minute lesson because you draw the topic and you teach, so there's no time to write a lesson plan. But for your adaptive lessons, you do need to write lesson plans for both of them. And then after the lessons, you do need to provide a written self-evaluation. So what did you do well? What would you change in the next lesson? Or what would you do differently in that lesson you just taught? And then how would you do that in lessons moving forward? So that's kind of the advanced certification in a nutshell. We'll kind of wrap up here, and if you guys have any questions, please feel free to post them. Even if you're watching on a replay and you have any questions, please let me know. I would highly encourage you to go for the advanced certification, but don't just go for that certificate. Challenge yourself to learn the stuff that is in the register or in the advanced level instructor criteria. Super good guide. Learn the information. Don't just learn how to test at the advanced level. And yes, you'll have to learn how to, the process and everything so that you're familiar with it, but don't just get locked in on just passing the certification. Get your eyes set on knowing this criteria and making yourself a better instructor. I've known some people who got their advanced certification and yeah, they passed the test, but they weren't really they weren't an advanced instructor all the time. They didn't apply all this information in their daily life and they weren't as hireable. Or people question why they had their advanced certification. So don't do that to yourself. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. I would love to answer any questions that you have. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions or want to chat about it more. If you need mentors for the advanced level, I do mentoring. I also have some other wonderful people I can put you in contact with. Some of them are my mentors that I've been very blessed to have known over these years. And thank you to Amy Sheets and Michelle LaFleur and some other wonderful people for helping me through this whole thing and being an instructor. Known them for several years, and they had a big hand in where I'm at now, whether or not they knew it. So thank you to those wonderful ladies. I will put my email here. And you guys can definitely shoot me an email. I will also put links to the the advanced instructor page through PATH International so that you guys can look at all of that information yourself. Read through it. And again, if you have questions, don't be afraid to reach out. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you to everyone who joined in live, and thank you to everyone who watched on a replay. And have a great rest of your evening.